What's good, y'all? It's your boy Cam back with another YouTube video, and today we're gonna be checking out this video, man. It's Americans living abroad. First time you realize America really messed you up. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but we're gonna find out today, man. How did America mess me up? Because I'm an American. Let's go.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So I've been living in New Zealand for the last 4 years, and at work there was an American flag, and I jokingly went and put my hand over my heart and said the Pledge of Allegiance, and everyone was kind of like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's a Pledge of Allegiance. So basically growing up every day at school at like 9 o'clock or whatever, we would all stand up and the whole class would recite the Pledge of Allegiance with our hands over our hearts to the American flag in the corner of the room.
Okay, yeah.
And my coworkers were like, what? And,
I bet, y'all. Let's go.
you know, when you say it out loud, it sounds a bit culty.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So when I was in high school, I was a lifeguard, and during my lifeguard training, they taught us that before we even administered first aid or CPR, we had to ask for consent to avoid being sued.
What?
Now fast forward a couple of years, and I'm in London as a waitress, and my company sends me to go do CPR training. And while I'm there, they go over the same stuff that I learned in the States, but I notice that they're completely glossing over this one particular area. So I raise my hand and I ask, what are the laws here? Like, how do you avoid being sued if something goes wrong?
Right.
To which every single person in the room starts laughing at me. Says, oh, you're American, right? Yeah, no one here is going to sue you for trying to save their life.
Oh my goodness, what the freak?
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed...
So in the U.S., I regularly get pneumonia. Sometimes I get like pneumonia and bronchitis, but pretty much all, you know, like clockwork, I get it. I had just moved to Scotland for my master's, and I was coming down with a respiratory infection like I do every year. It was just the early onsets of pneumonia, but like normally I wait to the point of where I'm like literally unable to breathe before I go to the doctor because it's expensive in the US. Well, here I was like, you know what, I'm here. I paid for the NHS. Let me go get it. Saw a doctor, gave me a prescription. I went to the pharmacy to pick up my medication.
Right.
Something that I literally would not be able to afford with my minimum wage job and being a full-time student. They gave it to me for free because it was necessary, and I almost cried in the pharmacy.
What the freak?
Like tears were welling in my eyes.
This one
For
time
free?
that made you realize that America really messed you up.
Okay, so I live in New York now.
America, the only place out. This is about the last one, but America, the only place where you can get sued for saving somebody's life, bro. It makes me think of The Incredibles when Mr. Incredible saved somebody's life, and he sued him. I saved your life. That's crazy, bro.
I used to live in England, and one time I was out at this
Show was ahead of its time.
with my friends, and these two cops walked by.
Movie.
And one of my friends was like, oh, I wonder why there are cops out right now. And I looked at the cops, and I got really confused, and I was like, those are cops? And my friends were like, yeah. And I was like, they don't have guns. And everyone was like, why would they have guns? They were like so aghast at that question. And I realized in that moment and learned that guns, there are so few guns in the UK, and it's such not an issue that like the everyday cop does not carry a gun.
Really?
And I was just, there are houses in America that have seen more guns in them than a fresh vegetable.
Yeah.
It blew my fucking mind. I think about it all the time.
What the freak?
I
know
hate
that.
guns so much. I hate guns so much.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
In the U.S., I could not let my 11-year-old son go outside and play by himself. Someone would call the cops or something would legitimately happen to him, and so there was no way. And when I moved to Germany, my husband, who's a German national, suggested that he go outside and play by himself because we would not have to worry.
If you're an...
That's actually crazy. That's actually really interesting because I wouldn't let my kid play outside alone. Wow, that's interesting.
Currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So I didn't realize this until I moved abroad, but Americans have a very strange concept of freedom.
How?
Like, when you're growing up, you're always told that America is such an amazing place, and,
Right.
you know, it's the land of the free, home of the
Yeah.
brave, but, like, I keep hearing these criticisms from people like, oh, yeah, but America has the most freedom. Wow, yeah, freedom. I mean, there may be a few exceptions or nuances, but in the UK, you're still free. Like, that is the biggest lie that Americans are ever told, that there aren't other free places. Like, I don't understand. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I feel like the concept is kind of destroying American democracy. How ironic. Like, they need to kind of understand that they need to work on things to make themselves better and more free for their citizens.
American currently
very
living
in-
abroad,
yeah.
what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Okay, so I'm not currently living abroad, but I did live in Australia.
That's very interesting, bro, because when we say America's for the free and stuff like that, I be like, okay, what's some other places got that we don't, or what's something they don't have but we do? And I'm watching this video and they're telling me right now. Interesting.
A few months. And one night while I was there, I got a little bit too crazy and I ended up on public transportation without a phone. And I had to find my way back to my apartment and I got lost. And while I got off the tram to get onto a different tram to take me home, a middle-aged gentleman came up to me and I immediately went into attack mode and I was like going to kill him. And he was like, no, I was just going to tell you which tram to take to get back to Preston. And that was when I realized that in Australia, I didn't need to be afraid. Like, granted, take precautions, but I didn't need to be afraid of every man. But in America, I still am.
If you're an American
I mean, that's kind of, but I understand her point. But I'm not a mean, evil man.
currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America...
So I don't live abroad anymore, but for half of 2018, I lived in Germany, and I have so many stories. The town that I lived in had like a main plaza area, and there was a cafe in that plaza, so a couple of my other American friends and I decided to try it out one day, and there was a construction site nearby.
Okay.
We heard a really loud bang, and, you know, we kind of assumed that someone had fired a gun, and so we, like, ducked for cover, and then we were looking around frantically, trying...
How loud could it have been? If I hear something crazy loud, I don't duck. She gotta explain it. Like, well, how loud was it though? I mean, for them to be going under the table, it must have been pretty freaking loud.
Find like a place that we could run to or hide to get out of the situation,
Okay,
and
yeah,
then we
it must have been
realized
loud.
that no one had shot a gun.
Wow.
No, it was a loud bang from the construction site. That's it. That's all it was.
The construction site. Okay.
We'd been speaking in English, and we all have really obvious American accents, so all the Germans around us gave us these really sad looks, like, oh, these
man.
poor Americans.
An American
Well, they probably looked at us so crazy.
living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you
Okay, so I moved to Sweden. And when I got here, I wasn't feeling too well, so I went to the doctor, and the doctor recommended that I get an EKG, an electrocardiogram. Now, instead of worrying about my health, my first reaction was, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can get one of those.
How
because
much?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it.
Right.
And this sweet little man, this sweet, amazing doctor goes, did you not pay the, like, $20 when you got here? I ended up getting a regular EKG, a 24-hour long EKG, a blood test, and a freaking checkup for $20!
For $20?
Part of this entire situation is that I am getting better, and I am getting the medical attention I need without going broke!
What is one time that made you realize
Bro, this is actually crazy.
America really messed you up?
I pride myself on being an American. I didn't make it out before COVID, but I went to Norway and I fell in love with Norway. I read about it, researched it, and I was like, I've got to visit first. And I only went for a week, and it was for the Infernal Metal Festival. And for the first time in my life, I was actually called an American. They didn't assume where I was from. And there was this beautiful Norwegian elder, and she says, "Gå paske." And I said, "Beklager, jeg snakker litt norsk." And I said, basically, she said, Happy Easter. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't speak a lot of Norwegian. And she goes, oh, you're an American. And she didn't worry about her purse. She didn't look at me sideways. And I cried. I cried when I left because for the first time, I was able to be just an American. I didn't even hardly drink, didn't do anything crazy.
Wow.
If you're an American currently living abroad,
Wow, and her German's really good actually too.
what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So during the first lockdown, we have an elderly neighbor, and we would go and check in on her every once in a while and like get her groceries if she needed. And progressively, she started not be able to breathe very well, and we knew it wasn't COVID because she had it before. But like at one point, it was like she couldn't even get to the door without like literally not being able to breathe and having to sit down. So my partner decided that we needed to call an ambulance for her and get her to the hospital pronto. And when he told me that he was going to call an ambulance, the first thing that I said was, are you sure? Can she afford an ambulance? Like we could just drive her. And it wasn't until my partner looked at me like, and that it clicked that, oh, that's not a worry here. And then I went upstairs and cried because it really smacked me in the face that as Americans, we are conditioned to not worry about someone's health first, but to worry about whether or not they can financially afford to see a doctor and get help.
An American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you...
So I moved to Germany in 2018 as a study abroad student, and I had a nice apartment that was on the ground floor with a nice patio, a big door that opened that led to the patio.
Nice.
And I was minding my own business in bed one day. The door was wide open. I had my noise-canceling headphones on, and I heard these really loud banging noises coming from outside that weren't very far.
What was it?
And I'm like, that's not a firework or a firecracker. It can't be. I freak out because as an American, I'm like, I'm about to get shot. Somebody is shooting up all of the student apartments right now. So I call all of my friends and I'm like, did you hear that? Am I crazy? Do we need to call the police and whatever? And they're like, I don't know, but yeah, maybe call your boyfriend who's German and like ask him. So I call my boyfriend and I'm like, watching, we just heard this stuff, like what's going on? And he's like, not to worry. Here in Germany, we don't have shooters. Those are probably just firecrackers. And I'm just like, I'm damaged. Like we are all damaged and freaking out about freaking firecrackers.
Bro, Martin, you agreeing, bro.
I think we're going to get shot up.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Could you imagine hearing that on the phone and you know that you're like, oh dang, okay. Thanks for the realization.
I live in Ireland and I've lived most of my adult life here. I moved to Ireland in 1995. My teenage daughter was born here many years ago, and when she was born, I spent 2 nights in hospital before she was born. I had an emergency cesarean section, and then I spent a further 6 nights afterwards. The total cost to me was $0. I kept asking them, like, are you sure no one wants my credit card? Like, do you want my details so you can send me the bill? And they would just like laugh, like, oh, you're American. There's no bill. So 8 nights in hospital, emergency procedure, $0 bill.
Yo, that's actually crazy,
American currently living abroad. What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Okay, I have another one. When I was studying in Spain, we had our orientation the first week of classes, and our program director sat us all down and had to explain our health insurance to us and how it worked. And basically it worked that you paid like €1,000 for the semester and you got health insurance, like free health insurance for everything. Dang. Covered everything.
Okay.
And she had to sit us down, and she had this big group of Americans in a room, and she was like, listen, if you are sick, go to the doctor. And we were all like, yes. And she was like, no, like Americans don't go to the doctor. You won't go to the doctor when you're sick. So I have to tell you every year to do this, and still kids will just put off going to the doctor because you're used to just like pushing through illness. No matter what it is, I don't care if it's a cold, go to the doctor. And she had to actually like spell that out for us.
What's a really weird thing that your body does that you're not sure
I think that
anybody else's body does?
Yeah, that's something else. Hey man, this is actually insane. It really gives you a magnifying glass when you see like how other countries react to certain things, and like people that live in America and what their experience is like after they leave. It's insane, bro. But if you're American and you're living abroad, what's some things you noticed? Is it similar to these? Is it something different? Let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, I'll see y'all in the next video, man. Peace.